It's the final resting place of some of country music's biggest stars. Let's visit Music Row at Forest Lawn Memory Gardens in Goodlettsville, Tennessee. Good morning, everyone. Today, I'm at Forest Lawn Memory Gardens in Goodlettsville, Tennessee. Forest Lawn was founded in 1960 and is a very large cemetery with all flat markers. It's also the final resting place of several country music stars, and during the next couple of videos, we're going to be visiting most of them. Today, I'm going to be visiting an area at the entrance to the cemetery known as Music Row. It's here that we will find the graves of such stars as Cowboy Copas, Hawkshaw Hawkins, and Randy Hughes. All three died in a plane crash in 1963 that claimed the life of Patsy Cline. Music Row is a small section that's located in the median between the entrance and exit roads directly across from the funeral home and chapel. The first grave that we come to is that of William Orville Lefty Frizzell. Lefty Frizzell was born on March 31st, 1928 in Corsicana, Texas. As a young man, he played and sang in honky-tonks in and around Big Springs, Texas, which eventually led him to Nashville. In 1950, he cut a two-sided hit record. The A-side was entitled, "If You Got the Money, Honey, I Got the Time," while the B-side, which also became a hit, was called "I Love You a Thousand Ways." These two hits propelled him to the stage of the Louisiana Hayride and eventually to the stage of the Grand Ole Opry. Over the years, Lefty became one of the most popular country music stars, and his style influenced such stars as George Jones, Willie Nelson, and Merle Haggard, just to name a few. Lefty Frizzell was only 47 years old when he suffered a stroke and died on July the 19th, 1975. 7 years later, in 1982, he was inducted into the Country Music Hall of Fame. Just above the grave of Lefty Frizzell is the grave of Judy Baker. I wasn't able to find out any information about her online, but her grave marker shows that she was born on August 9th, 1924, and died at the age of 75. On February 25th, 2000, and she was country music's hostess. If anyone out there has more information on who Judy Baker was, please be sure to leave me a comment. I'd be very interested to learn more about her. The next grave directly above Judy Baker is that of Harold Franklin Hawkshaw Hawkins. Hawkshaw Hawkins was born on December 22nd, 1921 in Huntington, West Virginia. As a teenager, he began performing on radio stations in West Virginia and Northeast Kentucky. In 1943, he entered the Army and fought during the Battle of the Bulge. During his 15 months of combat service, he was awarded 4 battle stars. After the war, he returned to West Virginia and began performing on WWVA's Jamboree USA in Wheeling, West Virginia. He was a regular on the Jamboree from 1945 to 1954. During his time on the Jamboree, he recorded his first 2 records, Pan American and Doghouse Boogie. Both became top 10 country hits. He went on to have a couple more hits with Sunny Side of the Mountain and Slowpoke, and he was well on his way to becoming one of country music's top stars. In 1954, he moved on to the Ozark Jubilee at Springfield, Missouri. It was there that he would meet his second wife, country music star Jean Shepard. He soon joined the Grand Ole Opry where he would become one of the show's most popular stars. In 1962, he recorded his biggest hit, Lonesome 77203. It first appeared on the country charts on March the 2nd, 1963. 3 days later, Hawkshaw Hawkins would perish in a plane crash near Camden, Tennessee. The crash would also claim the lives of country music stars Cowboy Copas and Patsy Cline, along with Patsy's manager and pilot, Ramsey Hughes. Hawkshaw Hawkins was only 41 years old when he died in that plane crash on March 5th, 1963, and after his death, Lonesome 77203 soared to number 1 on the country charts. It was his only number 1 hit. If you walk across the road from the grave of Hawkshaw Hawkins, you will find the graves of Ramsey Hughes and Cowboy Copas. They also died in that plane crash with Hawkshaw and Patsy Cline in 1963 near Camden, Tennessee. Patsy's the only one of the 4 people killed in that crash that is not buried here. She's buried in her hometown of Winchester, Virginia at the Shenandoah Memorial Park. I visited her grave in an earlier video, and I'll put a link to that video in the description below. Ramsey Hughes and Cowboy Copas are buried side by side, and there's a reason for that. I didn't know until I was talking to one of the cemetery employees that Cowboy Copas was Randy Hughes' father-in-law. Ramsey was married to Cowboy Copas' daughter, Kathy. Ramsey Hughes was born on September 11, 1928 in Gum, Texas. He was an accomplished musician in his own right and played with several acts, including Cowboy Copas and Patsy Cline. In 1959, he began devoting more time to become a manager, with Patsy Cline becoming one of his first clients. He also began taking flying lessons and bought his own plane that he used to fly clients from one show to another. On March 3, 1963, Patsy Cline, Cowboy Copas, and Hawkshaw Hawkins had performed in Kansas City. After the show, weather prevented the group from flying back to Nashville. After being delayed for more than a day, the group boarded the plane with Hughes as the pilot. On March 5, 1963, shortly after taking off, in the rain and fog from an airport near Dyersburg, Tennessee, the plane crashed in a wooded area near Camden, Tennessee. All 4 were killed. I visited the site of the crash in an earlier video, and I'll put a link to that video in the description below. Lloyd Cowboy Copas was born on July 15, 1913 in Blue Creek, Ohio. When he was a teenager, he began performing on local radio stations and became a popular local act in southern Ohio and northern Kentucky. He eventually formed his own band called the Gold Star Rangers and moved to Knoxville, Tennessee, where he joined up with Pee Wee King. That eventually led him to the stage of the Grand Ole Opry. While performing on the Opry, he recorded several hit songs, including Signed, Sealed, and Delivered, Candy Kisses, and Tennessee Moon. He became one of the Opry's most popular performers, and in 1960, he recorded his biggest hit, Alabama, which surged to the top 10 on the country charts. It was his last top 10 hit. 3 years later, he would die in that plane crash in western Tennessee. He was only 49 years old. While I was at the grave of Ramsey Hughes, I noticed the grave of Don Helms. Who is Don Helms? Well, he's probably one of the best known steel guitar players in the field of country music. He was also a member of Hank Williams' Driftin' Cowboys. After Hank's death, Don became one of the most sought-after session musicians in Nashville and was featured on such hits as Waterloo by Stonewall Jackson, Patsy Cline's Walking After Midnight, and Loretta Lynn's Blue Kentucky Girl. He was also a member of the Grand Ole Opry staff band and could be found playing all three shows on Friday and Saturday nights. You will be hard-pressed to find a better steel guitar player in the past, present, or future than Don Helms. Don passed away on August the 11th, 2008, from the complications of diabetes and heart surgery. He was 81 years old. Moving back across the road into the median of Music Row, we find the grave of Jimmy Elrod. Jimmy was a guitar and banjo player who worked in the 1950s on the Old Dominion Barn Dance in Richmond, Virginia, and the WWVA Jamboree USA in Wheeling, West Virginia. He eventually found his way to Nashville, where he became a member of Bill Monroe's Bluegrass Boys. He also performed with Bill on the Grand Ole Opry, and later played with Opry performers Wilma Lee and Stoney Cooper and their Clinch Mountain Clan. In the mid-1960s, Jimmy left the stage and settled in the community of White House, Tennessee, where he worked in private industry for over 30 years. But he was always proud of being one of Bill Monroe's Bluegrass Boys. You can tell, as it's highlighted on his gravestone. Jimmy Elrod died at the age of 70 on October 15th, 2009. The last grave I want to visit in this video is just in front of Lefty Frizzell. Here is the grave of James Clell Summy, who is better known to old-time Grand Ole Opry fans as Cousin Jody. He was born on December 11th, 1919 near Knoxville, Tennessee. He was an accomplished dobro player, and in the 1930s, he was introduced to Roy Acuff and became the first dobro player for Roy's band, the Crazy Tennesseans. After a few years with Roy, he left and joined Pee Wee King before moving on again and joining Lonzo and Oscar. It was here that he enjoyed his greatest success and developed the character Cousin Jody. Cousin Jody became one of the first and most successful comedy acts on the Opry, paving the way for such stars as Rod Brasfield and, of course, Cousin Minnie Pearl. He was also featured in several cowboy movies in the 1940s and 50s, appearing with such stars as Roy Rogers, Gene Autry, and Johnny Mack Brown. As you can see on his gravestone, Cousin Jody was a veteran of World War II, serving in the United States Army Air Corps. He continued to travel and appear on the Opry until health issues made it impossible for him to perform. James Clell Summy, our Cousin Jody, passed away on August 18th, 1975. Well, I'm going to end this video here on Music Row at Forest Lawn in Goodlettsville, Tennessee. If this is your first time here, please consider ringing that bell and subscribing so that you can keep up with all of my adventures. And if you enjoyed this video, be sure to give me a thumbs up. Until next time, remember, life's a journey. Be sure to take time and enjoy it. And I'll see you down the road. So long, everyone.